Yeah, let's talk about the ATACMS strikes. We were discussing the last Russian retaliation. Of course, there was first the Oreshnik strike, but then there was the destruction of the launchers, the HIMARS launchers that are used for launching ATACMS missiles in the Sumy region. I believe there were 5 launchers that were destroyed. And then a number of Western personnel, including quite a few Americans, were killed on a strike that same night. We said, and then we noticed, I think it was, for a good week or more after, that nothing had happened. So we speculated along with a lot of other people, what's going on here. Maybe finally, the Americans, NATO got the message and has decided to pull back and rethink this. But I also offered an alternative explanation, and that is that when those launchers were destroyed, actually their means for launching another attack in that area have been greatly degraded. And it was, because again, you can only launch one ATACMS missile with one of these launchers. So you would need to launch 6, you would need 6, and 5 were destroyed, right? So, and I think what happened suggests that the latter explanation was true, because this strike was launched from the Zaporozhia region. It hit, what was it, Taganrog? It was...
right, Taganrog.
Taganrog, you're right.
Yeah, it's between Mariupol and Rostov-on-Don.
Yeah, closer to Rostov-on-Don, right. It's just it's a very northeastern corner of the Sea of Azov. So it's nowhere close to Kursk.
Right.
You could say with the Bryansky strike, which was the first one, well, that was very close to Kursk. So this is a clear escalation. They said, we're very limited. We're just doing this to protect the Ukrainian forces in Kursk. Now, you can't make the argument for this. They went after a military airfield. Apparently, 2 of the missiles were shot down by Russian air defense, and the remaining 4 were diverted from their flight, their program flight paths by electronic warfare. I think 1 or 2 did some damage, but nothing but superficial damage to the military installations there. I think just actually a number of parked cars may have been destroyed, and then 1 building slightly damaged. But yeah, it was a clear escalation, and it shows that, they haven't given up. They're going to keep on escalating, and Russia will keep on responding. So we're still on this, the escalation ladder.
Right. Russia promised a response. I expect that these responses will be a bit more swift. We won't see the same type of thing with Iran. Do you believe the same thing?
Right. Yeah. Obviously, Iran is taking its time. I would be very surprised if they didn't, because they made it quite clear that they were, and their reputation's on the line. Now, remember, the last one took 2 months. We're not at 2 months yet, and who knows? It may be part of a deliberate effort to kind of slow down the tempo of these strikes and counterstrikes, that Iran. But I think, we can see a fairly rapid response by Russia. That so far has been true. The Oreshnik strike came, I think, just a few days after, the first missile attacks.
Do you believe that we'll see another Oreshnik being used?
It's possible. It's certainly possible. That actually, in fact, that's what Putin said, that that they would. We can't be sure that it'll be in this particular case, but he's promised to do that. It sounds like, he again mentioned decision-making centers as a possible target of a Oreshnik strike.
Would that be in Kiev?
Probably would. That's where most of the decision-making centers are.
Right. I was thinking that would send a much kind of clearer message. If it's in Kiev, then everybody sees it.
Right.
And it just sort of just reminds everybody there, like, hey, we can hit you with impunity.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do.
Right. They've been, in general, there have been strikes on Kiev, obviously, but they've been rather limited. And so far they have kept away from the main, decision-making centers.
Yeah, well, like what I said earlier, I just feel like everything's coming down towards this ultimate showdown. That's where everything's moving. Is that what you're feeling too? That this is?
Yeah, I'll just repeat what I said earlier. I think we're on this this escalation ladder, is clear that the U.S. is, we had some doubts after the most recent hiatus after those launchers were destroyed, but it's clear they still have this escalatory intent. And the Russians have made it clear that they're not going to back down, and they've showed that they're not going to back down. So we're going to go up this, and I think the fact is that even as Obama himself said, when he was president, he said that, and explaining why he wasn't sending arms into Ukraine, he said that it's because the Russians have escalation dominance there, and they do. So they can meet each one of these threats and overcome them and neutralize them. And that's what we're seeing so far. I mean, not only, they do retaliate and do some real serious damage when they retaliate, right? But these strikes themselves have done minimal damage because Russians are able to, have this very advanced air defense system and, electronic warfare systems. So the Russians are going to win this battle, there's just no question. It's really stupid. I don't know what. Again, these political leaders, I don't think they really even understand whether they still kind of think that it's just a matter of will and that we just have to be superior. It's just because we haven't, we've been too cautious, and we got to just try this and that. But none of these things are going to work. After the ATACMS strikes, after they run out of ATACMS missiles, because they really don't have very many of them, and Storm Shadows and Scalp missiles, they may go to, well, it may be Taurus next, right? It looks like that Merz may become the next chancellor of Germany, and he's really seems very hot to use the Taurus, even though the German people, I mean, that's a possible break, but 80% of the German people are against using it. But he wants to, and he may have his way. Again, that's potentially a more serious threat, or could cause a more serious provocation within Russia because it has a much longer range. But again, the Russians will manage. They will neutralize the Taurus threat, and then what are we looking at? Maybe Tomahawks. And then, but again, it's just, even if they can do some damage here and there with these missiles, it's just nothing. Russia is a very, is the world's largest country and the world's probably the most powerful military, and it'll be just pinpricks. So every one of these is going to fail. And then the last thing that we're looking at, and something that Macron still keeps on talking about, is sending soldiers, NATO soldiers into Ukraine.